Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us once again. This is the Adam Interview Series. It airs every weeknight, 8 p.m. on the Rochester First streaming app. We're so glad that you could join us for another great discussion. This one is a national discussion. As you may or may not have heard, there are changes that are being implemented right now to what's called the H1-B visa program. So it may sound, if you haven't heard about that, a little esoteric, a little out there, but it affects everyday life in every single community, because essentially what H1-B visas do is they allow people from outside the country with some higher education to come in and perform jobs that are usually very skilled. So you're talking about jobs in the medical profession, the tech profession, and the companies in our area, organizations, companies, they depend on a lot of these workers. And the changes out there right now could include a $100,000 fee in order to get the H-1B visa or to stay here on it. Again, there's a lot of moving parts right now. A lot of universities in our area are trying to figure out what's at stake. There's been a lot of worry over the last few days from people who have these visas. Where do they stand? All of that. But right now, I want to focus on how the H-1B visa program impacts us in Rochester and what it would look like if we were to lose some of these H-1B visa workers in our area. So to help us kind of look at where this stands in our area, we have Joe Leathersich from the Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce. Joe, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely, Adam. Thanks for having me.
So why don't we first talk about the program? Where does it stand in Rochester? How do we have a lot of H-1B visa workers here?
So, I mean, it is still very new, and we're still trying to wrap our heads around it. But it is something that many of our businesses, and as you alluded to, rely on to fill critical skills gaps. I mean, in manufacturing and particularly in healthcare. So it's something that we're going to continue to monitor, and because it is so vital for so many of our members here.
Why don't we walk through what type of jobs in industries are we talking about when we talk about H-1B visas?
Yeah, I mean, particularly, healthcare is first and foremost, both nursing and physicians. I do need to mention that at the Chamber of Commerce, we actually host a program that's in partnership with our health systems to bring nurses from abroad to fill our nursing skills gap right now. And so it's been successful thus far, and we're looking to have that continue to grow and bringing nurses to fill these gaps. But with the policy announcement the other day, there's not a lot of questions now. And again, it's still new and we don't have a lot of clear guidance, but it's something that we're going to continue to monitor. And I've been talking to the folks who sort of run that program. It's this company that they have a presence here in Rochester through the chamber, but they do this sort of effort nationwide in other parts of the country. But so we're with respect to healthcare is sort of our main concern, because the chamber is actually literally helping to deliver these people, get these people to the country to fill these skills gaps.
Before we get to other industries, I think that's really important, because during the pandemic, after the pandemic, we really saw, there's always been a shortage, but we really saw the shortage. They were bringing traveling nurses, which can be very expensive and temporary for these hospitals. So that's interesting. Where are they bringing nurses in from? I mean, how does that work?
So the company is called InSpring, and this is sort of what they do. And they do other industries, but for our purposes, we brought them on board just to fill the nursing gap. But they're coming from all over. I mean, I've met some of the nurses, a lot of them from African countries, but as you mentioned, they are educated, they have the skills, and it's just a matter of getting them over here to get them into our nursing units to start delivering the services that our healthcare systems need, because we're part of the even bringing them on was with that there's more shifts that need to be filled and units that need to be staffed, and so it's pretty important conversation.
And in this particular case, I know there are some arguments that say that when you bring in someone with a skill set, it might be taking the job of an American, but in this case, those jobs were not being filled.
Correct.
And so this fills positions that there needs to be bodies for the healthcare of our community, but it was not happening. And so there was no competition.
Correct. And so, that touches on something that is really important to mention here is like we share in the president's goals to have homegrown talent here in America. I don't think I'm, telling tales when I say that many American businesses, and certainly our members, would love to see that homegrown talent fill these critically and highly skilled roles. But until we get there, and there are a lot of investments being made in the community right now to get there eventually, certainly with the advent of the Tech Hub hopefully coming online, we are, we need programs like this to get us to those goals while we wait for this education and sort of talent or workforce re-education to fill these gaps.
What is the Tech Hub, by the way?
Our region, meaning Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse, was awarded a designation through the federal government to be designated as a federally recognized tech hub, and we're the only one in the country with that is dedicated as a semiconductor tech hub. So obviously the Micron investment happening in Syracuse is kind of an anchor there, but the goal is to, and the pitch in the process was to say that, look, our region, being, again, when I say region right now, I'm meaning Syracuse to Buffalo with us in between, has a lot of acumen in high tech manufacturing. I mean, obviously our region specifically, Rochester region, has a ton of acumen in optics and photonics, and which is something critical to that industry. And so, we're trying to stand up this program and then court companies here that are in high tech manufacturing, and they're going to need workers, and they're going to need skills gaps filled. And so, having the H1-B program as a rather, if we have too many impediments with the H1-B program, that would be concerning for people and companies trying to come here.
Yeah, and I think the Micron, you're talking about tens of thousands of jobs. We just don't have that workforce right now.
Yeah, I think it's 50,000 jobs that Micron alone is supposed to bring online, and so
then all the offshoot jobs,
correct,
and everything like that. So, and that's a big enough draw that we'll see the impact in our area, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we are fully prepared to have other companies come here, supply chain companies, and just to bring sort of feeder companies to Micron, obviously as the anchor, but hopefully other semiconductor companies that want to come here, because now all of a sudden the skills are here and the knowledge is here, and so it's expedient for them to be here in Western New York.
All right, so we talked about kind of the microchip. We talked about healthcare. What other industries would you say? I'm hearing universities in particular impacted by this.
Yeah, I mean, not only nursing but physicians, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how so many of our physicians come from overseas and contribute to the quality healthcare that we have here in Rochester, for sure. I mean, we should be proud of the acumen that our hospital systems have, that when folks need a procedure or surgery, that they can go there and know that it's incredibly high quality. And many of these physicians have come to America through the H1-B process. And so what does it portend for the quality of healthcare that our residents have access to if it is more difficult for physicians to come to America? I mean, it's just something we're gonna need to continue to monitor.
Yeah, I was in a local county nursing home and rehab center yesterday, and I was passing by a wing, and the gentleman I was with said, that whole wing is closed right now because they just don't have the manpower and woman power to manage it. According to the person I was talking to, the need is there. They just didn't have the people.
Sure.
And that's a concern.
Yeah. And the other thing I should mention is that our workforce shortages and desires to address talent, skills, gaps, and everything is not new. This is not something that just began, on January 20th of this year. This has been a years-long endeavor. And so, again, I say that to emphasize that we do share in the president's mission to address these issues, and it's just hard to know what's either real or where the goalpost is on the issue. You know, this 100,000 fee, is it a one-time thing? Is it recurring? You know, we just don't know yet.
And I know we don't know this either, but I'm wondering how many of these institutions and businesses would be able to pay $100,000
Sure.
per employee? That's probably going to be a very big question if this does go through.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, even, you know, the most, you know, companies, high-tech companies that have a whole bunch of revenue, I mean, a lot of them get their employees through the H1-B process, so they would be hit particularly hard. Obviously, any small businesses or medium-sized businesses that have even just one or two people on their staff through the H1-B process, I mean, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue that they might, you know, otherwise been able to invest in their company.
And I'm asking the next question, having never worked beside someone here on an H1B visa that I know of at least.
Sure.
Do they bring anything else to the table aside from just filling a job?
I mean, they just become employees at the company, right? They contribute to the culture of the business and the collegiality, and so I think they just become part of whatever that company is, or, you know, the healthcare system or the unit that they are on, and, you know, they do bring, you know, whatever perspective that based on their upbringing and where they're coming from, they bring that to the States, but more than anything, they are just step right in to not only fill that gap, as you're mentioning, but to just be part of whatever team they are joining.
So my last question for you, Joe, is where does it go from here for the Chamber of Commerce? What steps do you take? Do you just kind of hold back and listen, or do you also try and send a message to the employer and the employees, the H1B visa, like, to hold tight? Because a lot of this is messaging too, right? A lot of this is
totally.
like making sure that they feel comfortable being here as well.
Yeah.
So what steps is the chamber taking?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was talking to our health systems just yesterday on this. I been huddling up with this company that, again, we're sort of hosting to bring these nurses to the United States, and, you know, continue to have those conversations. I mean, I was actually talking to someone from Congressman Morelli's office yesterday on it. You know, we're all trying to sort of get the picture here, right? And this seems to be the case with the administration, that these ideas are thrown out, and then there is not a whole ton of clarity on what the steps are to achieving the goal. And, you know, tariffs are another sort of example of that we're hearing from businesses on, that, you know, where is the goalpost? We all just kind of want to know where the goalpost is, so then we can start working towards that.
So I know I said last question, but what you said is kind of mentioning, so I mean, the confusion over it, or the worry, as you say, can that have an impact in and of itself? I
think so. I mean, you know, so we've been talking to members, I mean, all the time, of course, but, you know, with respect to tariffs, since these have sort of started to become socialized in certain prices, and, you know, I still think a lot of the impacts are in sort of upstream industries and not felt quite at the consumer level yet. But, you know, we hear one of two refrains. You know, we hear from manufacturers who are like, we're getting crushed right now, certainly over the steel tariffs. And then we have smaller members who are saying that, you know, we don't know what the tariffs are, so, like, we're not being affected that much. But we keep hearing that, essentially, that we're not investing in our company because we don't know where the tariffs will be soon. And I'm almost like, well, that's the impact here at the moment, that companies their inaction or inability to know where to invest and have that line of sight is leaving investment and growth opportunities on the vine, while we all sort of hope to get some clarity on the tariffs. Do you have any members of the chamber that are saying, oh, because of the tariffs, I am seeing more business because so-and-so can't get their product or don't want to get their product from another country? Totally. Yeah, let me make sure that's clear. It is an across the board spectrum here. Like, it is. And again, it's something that we agree with the president on. I mean, I think everyone would love to see manufacturing come back to the United States and be let's onshore it, but also invest in the manufacturers that are already here. And some of them are certainly there are certainly beneficiaries of the way the tariffs are going, but we are hearing more of the concern over them.
And so you had said a lot of this is upstream. When does the chamber expect, if you're kind of forecasting, looking to your crystal ball, that we may see some of the price changes on the shelves, so to speak?
I don't want to put a specific date out there, but it does seem to be the case that we're seeing big box sellers starting to socialize some of their prices. I think there's been a lot of news lately that a lot of companies have been sort of eating the costs, hoping that maybe they go away or they get a line of sight. And but I think there will be a point where companies say, well, we can't eat these costs of the tariffs any longer. We do have to bake them into our supply chain and the whole process here. And so it could be few months from now, sometime next year. I don't want to
put a specific date out there. Impossible to truly.
But it is something that we're concerned about.
What does our manufacturing landscape look like in Rochester right now?
Yeah, I mean, we, as I mentioned a minute ago, we have a ton of acumen in the optics and photonics space.
Right.
We have a number of companies. We were just talking to one the other day that develops just really heavy machinery for, frankly, other manufacturers, and it's a lot of them are facing. A lot of their concerns are specifically tied to the steel tariffs that went in place just a couple months ago, and so it is a little bit, manufacturing is a little bit of a nebulous term there, but we're hearing from a lot of the ones that are most affected by the steel tariffs.
And I'm asking a lot of this because I think you kind of were. Fortunately, I'm very grateful for opening the door to kind of talking about things that I've been thinking about. Sure. Lumber, I think we get a lot from Canada because they are so close. Is our construction industry being affected at all at this point, or is that pretty much still on course because of previous orders, previous supply? Where does that stand?
You get a little bit of both. You got people who bought right when this sort of tariffs hit, and so they were able to buy at a lower cost. There are some. We've heard instances of people saying, well, we have a fixed price contract, so thank God we got that in place before this. And others that are, impacted because they, have to buy the lumber and other materials from abroad right now. So this is sort of the gift and curse of being a chamber of commerce, a membership-based organization, that we do hear all these perspectives, and so we're trying to give credence to all of them.
Why don't we step back for those who don't know, because before I got into this business, I didn't know, what does the Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce do? What is its main goal?
So the main goal is advocacy, right? Historically, was its onset mission. We have 1,300 members. More or less at the Greater Rochester Chamber. I always make sure to point out that while we have big companies and a lot of legacy companies heavily involved in the chamber, 85% of our companies are 100 and fewer employees, and 40% I think are 10 and fewer. So we do represent a massive swath of small businesses, and that's 100 employees and fewer, is smaller than what the SBA considers a small company. I think there are 250 or so employees. And so these, we do really take to heart that we represent real mom and pop kind of shops who are just trying to deliver whatever service that they found the niche for. But advocacy is the main driver of the chamber, and it does look in different ways. We host different events that people like to network at, and other sort of listening sessions and panel discussions, and other times it's me traveling to Albany or going to talk to legislators and stuff. So advocacy itself has, I think, multiple definitions, but that is what I would say is the lead word of what a chamber exists for.
And I guess I don't know this, and I never even thought about it. Does the Rochester Chamber, are all chambers related? Is there a federal chamber, and it's just, or is it just we use that word but they're all separate?
Well, so we're all separate entities. I would say we work very closely with our partners in Buffalo and Syracuse, a lot due to the fact that we have this tech hub conversation happening, and we're all impacted by it, and we're all part of the reason we have the tech hub designation is the fact that we all are very like-minded cities and have similar issues, and so so I often am talking to my peers there. Hey, where do you guys stand on this bill or this policy? Are you getting questions about this? Because if they're hearing it, then we likely are as well, and sort of vice versa. But there is, of course, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, which is, we are members of as a chamber, as the Greater Rochester Chamber, which it's the same model as us, right? They have member businesses, and they talk to federal legislators about the business community's concern. And in fact, I'm glad you brought that up, because the U.S. Chamber issued a statement on the H1-B policy announcement just the other day, and it was quite terse, I would say.
Interesting.
It was, I always like to see what they're saying on some of these federal policies, because it's just helpful to know where they stand as an organization. And how terse it was indicative to me that I think they are also concerned on behalf of their members what the H1B proposal could mean for businesses.
Yeah, I'm going to try and pull that up. So give me a little synopsis there while I try and figure this out.
I mean, you say a little synopsis. I mean, I think it was only 2 sentences.
Oh, I see. So you mean like terse, like
yeah.
Really short.
Yeah.
All right, let me see if I can grab that. While I do, in your conversations with the other chambers, if you will, I don't know if that's the proper terminology.
Yeah, totally. It is.
Is there kind of a universal feeling about this amongst all the chambers, given the advocacy role of the organizations?
I have to admit, I've not checked in with them on this issue, but without putting words in their mouth, I would guess that they are also concerned. I mean, they also have pretty strong and robust healthcare systems. They also have manufacturers. So, they are, again, the reason I talk to them is because we are very like-minded. So, I know that they will be impacted by this, or at least they are concerned on what it could mean for their communities.
All right, I'm going to do the double box here, and then I think I found it here. Let's see here. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce released the following statement. We are concerned about the impact on employees, their families, and American employers. We're working with the administration and our members to understand the full impact of the best path forward.
Yeah.
End quote. You were right.
That's terse was.
Yeah, that is the appropriate description. But very similar, in line with kind of what I'm hearing from you, to be honest, in the chamber, which is there's a small amount of wait and see, but at the same time concern over where this is going.
Yeah.
So, if you had it, if there were to be any policy changes, was there anything like that you have seen with your time at the chamber? Any changes that you would have liked to see, or was it going fairly smoothly from what you heard from your members?
I mean, look, all policies and all regulations and laws should be assessed and for their efficacy, right?
Right.
I think that's just a constant thing that needs to happen for a healthy democracy. And so, so I don't want to pretend like, it was all well and good, but I will say that we didn't hear these concerns until the policies here. So it's, I don't have any specific suggestions that we were certainly hearing for to advocate on. I mean, that's often the case that when people come to us, they're really feeling some sort of pain, or they have some real terrible concern, and that's when my job kicks in to sort of package up that message and deliver it to the legislators and folks who need to hear it. It's certainly, I don't want to imply that the system was all well and good and everyone loved the process and it made so much sense for everyone. But this seems to be a material change for folks.
And it's interesting because we always have metrics to grade the economy, the inflation, the price index, all these things. But then there's some softer measurements. And I suppose one of them could be whether the chambers across the country are getting more calls. People being like, we need help, we need explanations.
Yeah.
Has the phone been ringing a little bit more at the chamber as of late?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely, like I said, with the H1-B policy for sure. Tariffs, we have been getting phone calls on really since it's become more real, I guess. Even when the announcement on April 2nd or whenever that was, was still so unknown. But now that it's actually sort of taking place, we are hearing from members specifically calling us and say, giving us the numbers on how they're being impacted. So we are definitely getting phone calls, and with the prospect of federal funding cuts, it's something else that's top of mind for us that we get phone calls about. So it's helpful for us when we get those phone calls, so we know where the concerns really are.
I didn't think about that because for some reason I thought mom and pop shops, but you probably do have now. Of course, federal funding goes to some private organizations if they feel like some project within that business would benefit the greater good, the country. And also, do you have nonprofits that are actually part of the chamber?
I was going to make sure to mention that we have a host of nonprofits. All the major nonprofits in the area are also members of the Chamber of Commerce, and we really take that to heart because they employ people who have disposable income that they use out at other businesses in Rochester. Many of them members. So they're a pretty key employer base in our region. And so we so specifically with respect to the nonprofits, they're obviously going to be most impacted by some of these cuts. And so we've been having those conversations as well.
Yeah, this went a lot longer than I expected, mainly because you were so willing to talk about some of these other issues. My true last question for you is, if there's a business owner, an entrepreneur out there, and they have concerns, what should they do?
They should reach out to the chamber. Even if they're not members, we'll field the call. It's not as if it's that much of a requirement to get our services. So, we have a website, greaterrochesterchamber.com, where my email's there, other folks' emails are there, or phone number. Encourage people to always reach out.
Yeah. All right, Joe, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time coming in here and
absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Giving us perspective from the chamber. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
we'll have you back. That was Joe Leathersich. He's with the Greater Rochester Chamber of Commerce, talking with us about not just the H1-B policy changes, but tariffs and just the general, giving us a little bit of a temperature gauge within the business community and also the nonprofit community. As I learned, they represent a lot of big nonprofits in our area as well. So I want to thank the chamber. I want to also let you know that we plan to continue to talk about these very big issues, whether it's immigration, H1-B visas, tariffs, all that, because even though you hear it on the national level, it affects us here locally. So again, thank you to Joe and the chamber for being so accessible. And thank you so much for joining us. Please tell your friends about the Rochester First streaming app. We hope that we get more and more people joining us because these conversations are so vital and, frankly, so interesting. With that, take care, everyone.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 on demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.